Hank Podcasts, America Listens. Hello, everybody. It's me, Hank. It's you, America. Time to listen. Welcome to the show. So you're hearing my voice. It sounds nice. It sounds okay. I don't have the highest quality microphones. Could use an upgrade, but this isn't a terrible sound tone. It's only going to get worse from here on out. I recorded this on Substack on Saturday. It's Sunday afternoon right now. In an impulsive moment, I was but I was writing tweets. I was just having a ton of thoughts, and I was about to spray them all over Twitter. That usually never goes anywhere, overwhelmingly. It rarely leads to anything, takes a bunch of energy. So I decided to try it on Substack. It's an idea I've had of just like spew your thoughts into a podcast form instead of long Twitter threads. Be ignored on Substack instead of being ignored on Twitter. Do something different. Try something else. And so I jumped onto Substack and was just like, maybe I'll just talk for 10 minutes. It has an audio record function, and I did it to test it, and it worked. And I was like, cool. But I didn't really listen very carefully. Turns out the Substack recording, and it might have been some input error on my end, so maybe it's not Substack, but the file it recorded, and I was able to download it, was just riven with pops and clicks, just lots of like every fourth word, almost all the time, and it's super annoying. I'm really sensitive to that sort of stuff. I pride myself on putting out decent quality, although I know there's a lot more stuff I could do from an equipment and a software side to make my quality sound good. But this was unacceptable. So I've spent about the last 4 or 5 hours farting around with this damn thing and finally got it to a point where it's listenable, I hope. There's auto click removers, there's software you could pay for. So multiple passes in Adobe Audition, multiple passes in Adobe Premiere Pro 24, which has this like enhance thing. I might be AI powered, I think. I'm not quite sure. Trying some in DaVinci as well, looking up tutorials on how to do these declicks and pop removers. And like I've done a lot of this kind of processing before manually. If it's one or two like mouth clicks, snaps, that's not so hard to do manually. But when there's 10 every 5 seconds or 10 so there's a whole lot in this. The best it sounds is now it sounds like I'm talking to you through a phone. So maybe that's not so bad. Might even be kind of interesting. And you can still maybe detect the little interruptions because it was able to clean up most of the frequency, but it was this lingering low frequency, the bassy side of it, where the clicks were still kind of detectable. And I've got pretty good headphones now, thanks to the GoFundMe. Someone was generous enough, or I was able to get it. That's the first thing I bought with some of the money was I needed much better headphones, and I'm really dialed in on it with these high quality headphones, and so maybe it's not even that big a deal. But man, it was so annoying. Multiple passes. I tried to take out all the bass, export it, return it, bring it back in, add bass back to it to replace the bass so it wouldn't be just upping the clicks that were left over, like the kind of ghostly shadows of the clicks and the pops. So I've been at war with the clicks and the pops for the last 4 or 5 hours today, watching stuff on doing other things kind of as well, working on a Substack post too, and I'm also intending to do more Substack posts as and possibly as well as on Patreon. I'm feeling very disjointed with my output. I'm honestly kind of so eager, and I think I say this in this episode, but I really just want to hopefully make this fundraiser work so I can go away for 6 months. I mean, I still have to be present somehow, but I just want to do what I'm really good at, which is be super hyper focused on a singular task and do an excellent job at that, because I'm all over the goddamn place with this internet shit and with posting and with putting up stuff. And I've put some stuff on TikTok and I'm going to upload some YouTube shorts, and it's none of it's my skill set. I mean, I know how to use words and I know how to align shapes and boxes and whatever, but goddamn, it doesn't work. Whatever return you're supposed to get from all that effort is not happening. So I'm feeling pretty frustrated these days. That anyway. All right, whatever. I know. So this podcast is a lot about like dignity, union stuff, union buster stuff, fascism. There's, of course, I'm talking about the TYT story, but the broader themes in all kinds of ways. And you don't need to hear me repeat myself. You're going to hear me talk about all that right now. So appreciate you tuning in. Just wanted to say, fair warning, this sound quality is terrible. And if enough people say, man, this is just unlistenable, if I get that reaction, I'll take it down. I can get these concepts spewed back into a microphone some other day and in a better quality. Will not be doing it on Substack anymore. I suspect it was my end, something about the input to, I don't know. It just seems like there's no way that their recording would be a sustainable feature if it was always this bad. So I doubt it was Substack's problem. But God damn it. I just wanted to say start, stop, post. I just want to do something super quick and easy. And of course it's turned into 8 hours of, messing around. And of course I talked too much, and now but I've been learning as well. So every time this sort of thing happens, which is every time, I gain a couple extra experience points with the editing and shit. So that's fun. All right. Okay, now it's time for flower pots and music, and then you'll hear me sounding like I'm on the telephone. I'm like a ghost calling from the ether realms, from the Necro dial-up system, through the telephone wires. Music. Hey everybody, it's Hank. So let's try this record feature on Substack. I'm doing something different here, following my impulse. Thinking about dignity and unions and fascism and union busters and what's going on in the world right now. Sorry if this is going to be a little bit rambly. If I have to edit, I'll download it, but here we go. So online here, I'm at UFW, United Farm Workers, on Twitter at UFW Updates, is showing a video of Trump's Gestapo, ICE agents, highly militarized, highly weaponized, federal fucking Nazi fucking goons detaining union leaders. They stopped a bus of farm workers, some of the most difficult, underpaid, disrespected. The importance of this work, these farm workers, the migrant farm workers in this country, the way we treat them, and they're being raided. They live in such fear. They live in such precarity. And now the Gestapo is going after them. The American, oh God, it just pisses me off so much. I'm so angry. So okay, I'll just read the tweet. It says, on May 2nd in Western New York, federal immigration agents stopped a bus of farm workers from Lynn et and Sons Farms. They had a list of names, including UFW worker leaders who have been organizing to unionize their workplace. Those workers were detained. The second tweet is, a member of the community shared this video from the incident on social media. And it's horrifying. In Germany, the Nazis went after union leaders. They went after socialists, communists, labor organizers, and trans people was one of their first targets. But this is the process that we're in. And I just wanted to kind of share some thoughts about my tweets. I mean, I tweeted some stuff which triggered me to have these thoughts, which is why I'm trying to get this on recording before the impulse goes away. And I'm going to relate it to my project, Tell the Truth Cenk, tellthetruthcenk.com. This, obviously, you're familiar with it if you're here on my Substack, or at least you could read up on the other articles, of course. Check out the film. 84 minutes are available. Tellthetruthcenk.com will get you there. Links here as well. Looking for help to complete the movie. 4 years of work, at least. It's just this agonizing quest. So please consider contributing. I just need to finish it. But there's a lot of thoughts I'm having here about union busters and solidarity. And I'm sort of trying to solidify the thesis that I'm looking to express in the movie. there's going to be some sort of wrap up in the final third. So it's essentially 2/3 finished. I'm trying to make an 18-inch hot dog. I've got 12 inches pretty much there. Definitely some tweaking. There's actually a few pieces, but yeah. So I'm hoping this project to a mighty wind of support rallies behind me to help me complete this story and tell this, not just tell Cenk Uygur's story, not just tell the Young Turks story, not just call out Cenk Uygur for lying. I mean, that's in the title. Not just explore all the interesting media dynamics that go on, but hopefully to inspire people and to show people what a unionizing process is like, what union busting is and why they do it and the mechanics of it, kind of. I mean, it's pretty clear. That's sort of part of my spidey sense when I was starting this project, and kind of why I've stuck to it, is that it's not just about drama. There's a dramatic element to it, I hope. I mean, I hope it's not. I hope. Sorry, I had too much coffee. There's a dramatic element to it. There's a narrative to it. There's a story here. There's an interesting story here, and it gets especially crazy and interesting because Cenk ran for Congress. I'm very confident he still would have done union busting had he not run for Congress. If he's crazy enough to do union busting while running for Congress as a progressive, you'd assume he would probably also do it without the spotlight of running to become a member of the United States House of Representatives as a progressive. It always cracks me up. And the message I'm hoping people come to understand is just I'm going to go a little bit too meta here right now. This isn't so, forgive me, and I'll wind my way back into it. Is human beings are connection machines. I don't even like saying machines, but we are this cosmic thing that links through empathy, through shared experience, through the simulator in your mind, the universe of the universe that lives within you is where all your friends are, is where everybody you see is. It exists inside your being. Again, this is probably not going to be in the film, this part. But what we do naturally, the most human thing, is to connect, is to experience something with another person. You can look at a person crying and you can start crying. You can look at a person laughing and you can start laughing. We're sort of a distributed computing system, to hold on to the metaphor of our modern technologies. I think it's much more beautiful than computers. But working together, cooperation is a human superpower. Is the whole thing about it all is that 10 people working together is so much more powerful than 10 people trying to do stuff by themselves. It's always true. Social physics. And what capitalists want, what Cenk wanted, and as I hope this becomes kind of clear, so I speak about Cenk, certainly there's a directness to it, but also it's about all the bosses, all the users, exploiters. What they want is they want your cooperative power, but they want it coming from a place of stress. They don't want it coming from a place of strength. But stress compels obedience. That's why stress is the root function of our economy. You don't work because you want to fucking work. You work because it's more stressful to not work. That's all it is. And the white hot, beating hot, white hot heart, mixing metaphorical heart of capitalism is that the best way to work is to have someone else work for you. The best way to do something is to not have to do it, but it gets done anyway. That's always easier. All the way back. It's not just capitalism, it's slavery. I heard somebody on TikTok describe the world we have. I'm going to paraphrase and succinctly as what this world we have now is just slavery with shopping privileges. I thought that was interesting. It's another line of thought I don't need to go down right now. But so they depend on the collective.
that the collective is the engine that powers all of it. When you hear the argument that capitalists say, defenders of it at least, it's amazing how many people who aren't explicit like just the amount of morons that have just bought into the propaganda, and maybe it's not fair to call them morons. They've been conditioned to be suspicious of any other alternative, which is wild to me. But who say that capitalism lifted people out of poverty? No, no, no. The labor did that. The source of all the power did that, which is cooperation, which is human beings using their fingers and their brains and their bodies to align molecules and information. I should have said atoms, to align atoms and information in useful ways. That's all value is. It's entropy. It's deliberately creating something that is less likely. Not to go too deep into my entropy rant. Plenty of stuff with that. There's plenty of that on Winners and Losers, and I hope to do a lot more. This is just so the engine is cooperation. The engine is people working together. But if people work together to stand up to the boss in a way that is not obedience, then it becomes threatening. Then it's something that must be defeated. Then it becomes something that you can hire professionals to help you do union busting at very high hourly rates. I don't know anything about TYT's hourly rates or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, union busting law firms and consultancy firms are incredibly lucrative businesses to run, because there's always cowards like Cenk Uygur and other bosses who are bullies who need to impose their will on their workers, so they hire coaches, practice professionals. Union busting is the intentional infliction of material and psychological harm to resubjugate your workers. The reason it works is because it hurts people. It's effective because it causes pain. People respond to pain. Violence of a sort, meaning violence in general, obviously, but like I don't want to explicitly call this violence. I think you could make a case, but still, is very persuasive. It'll always be true. We'll never escape that fundamental fact. And so we have an economy that's built around explicit violence and the threat of explicit violence. And so the stuff I tweeted here, this is what sort of set my thoughts going here, is I'll read my own tweet. I know, I'm sorry. These are just, I'm sort of trying to piece all this together, is partially for me doing work in my head right now for the script for the film. So it does connect to it all. So I wrote, union busters and fascists have a lot in, start over. Union busters and fascists have a lot more in common than people realize. There's a reason Hitler worked closely with so many American industrialists. The root code is the same: power. Capitalist ideology centers on domination, subjugation, relationships, not trust and solidarity. So I've talked about that before, is the two models for power, the two models for social relationships is domination, subjugation, and trust. Trust is the source of solidarity, mutual interests, mutual respect, even with people you don't necessarily agree with on everything. But you either you do what I say, and if you don't, you face the consequences, which in our world means you got to go, you can leave, you can quit, right? You're not kidnapped. Kidnapping and working is slavery. We call that slavery. What we call today, it's often been described as wage slavery, which essentially means choose your master. And then they'll point at these very, very rare exceptions where people manage to become one of the masters, or to get lucky enough with a lotto victory, or somehow escape the whole thing because they get rich enough that they can be protected by it. And I'm not saying this to say Cenk was terrible about that either, by the way. Overall, the day-to-day was fairly ordinary as far as I could tell. You know, I'm not saying like you would walk around and treat people with that level of disrespect. The disrespect was built into the conditions. Like when you call someone, in my case, I was called part-time while I worked 40-hour weeks. And I was called part-time because that empowered Cenk to keep my benefits, right? So I didn't get paid days off or holidays, holiday pay, personal days, no health insurance, no benefits. Before that, I was independent contractor. Those are the reasons we unionized. If that's not a reason, if your boss calling you part-time while you're putting in 8-hour days isn't a reason to start a union to try to stop that, then I don't know what is, right? I mean, it's really truly astonishing. Of all, and let me keep going. So my next tweet, I'm relating the comfort capitalists have with fascists because they're basically the same. They have the same root code. They have the same power model. Not to say that they're explicitly so. I know people can get all up in the weeds about the precise definition of fascism and its origins and all those other ways. But ultimately, it comes down to leverage, imposing leverage through violence, through coercion, which also is a form of like delayed violence. That is to say, if you don't follow your boss's orders and you get spat out at the end, you get fired, you lose your job. They make it painful. They keep the homelessness visible. They keep they don't want it to be visible, but like homelessness is serves as a message to obey, to be obedient, and they don't care if people fall into it. Of course, that's also going to feed into the burgeoning slavery institutions that we call prisons. But the comfort that the capitalists have with fascists is because they're from the same school of thought, the same notion that we dominate, you subjugate. You play nice, we might reward you. Things might get okay for you, but you don't disobey. You don't unionize. And so these Nazis are targeting union organizers because union organizers are actively trying to produce solidarity, the countervailing force, the thing that is more powerful than capitalists. It truly is. It's the source of, that's what I was saying at the beginning. It's the engine behind their power is cooperation, looking out for each other. So my second tweet here, this is kind of a clumsy way to do this because I'm going to trip myself up. But I wrote Leon Fusk. I don't know why I decided to, I don't know. I assume most of these words get shadow banned. All the stuff I talk about is just the least monetizable shit according to the algorithm gods. Leon Fusk's salute didn't get him excised from his community, his peer group. It alarmed a lot of people, but the command and control savages in suits saw nothing worth imposing a social cost. I should have put the word over, a social cost over. They might not be locusts themselves, but they're still grasshoppers. And I need to look up the speciation between locusts and grasshoppers. I don't actually think I fully understand that precisely. Are locusts a species of grasshopper, or are they a form of grasshoppers that go into swarming? I gotta get it. I'm not gonna. Okay. Pull back, Hank. But you notice that when Elon Musk did that Nazi salute on his first day, this guy's hailing Hitler behind the podium of the presidency of the United States, or the president at the inauguration, does it twice. No consequences. You could argue the market responded by, against Tesla and all the other reasons that people hate Elon Musk, for all the numerous reasons. His lack of charisma being low on the list. I'd say it's trying to starve all of our grandmas to death, trying to destroy all these clumsy benefits or positives the government actually does do with various ways. So much of it is horrible, but a lot of it is actually quite healthy. A lot of people are starving to death because of the cuts to food aid and stuff like that. It's complex and nuanced, but this psycho, he's a huge union buster. who is so off-putting and such an irritant. I'm sure the industrialists peer group of his would rather he weren't creating such a visible example of why we need to tax billionaires out of existence. They're smart enough to know that it looks bad for their cohort. But was he excised? Was he kicked out? Was he exiled by his community for hailing Hitler? No. I'm sure some of them explicitly agree. I'm sure some of them just make excuses. Who's trolling? Of course, the autistic one pisses me off as an autistic person. And I have excellent rhythm, by the way. Autism doesn't mean awkwardness. I'm socially awkward for sure, but physically, I'm actually above average. A guy said I played softball. He had me come in and fill in. He needed a guy. And I smacked some fucking home runs, man. I was good. But I was right. And he goes, wow. And he was a really athletic dude. He goes, wow, Hank, you're surprisingly graceful. So I'm surprisingly graceful. Very proud of that. So they make excuses for this guy hailing Hitler. They look the other way, but no consequences. No, he doesn't lose his job. He doesn't get punished. He's got all these connections. He's very powerful because capitalism and Nazism are not as far apart as you think. There's a reason one of the major projects in the 30s that the Nazi Party did in Germany was to privatize government-owned assets and sell them off to Hitler's buddies. Exactly what they're going to do after they kick in the depression that they're triggering with the tariff bullshit. There might be just enough feedback from the slightly less out of their minds capitalists, once the money starts going south pretty hard and the finance, the over financialization of the society is desperately terrible and something we need to reckon with majorly. But their over influence might also be the thing that pulls back from these depressions, except they're all salivating at the notion of all the asset prices going down, of people getting so desperate they're starting to sell them, their bodies themselves. It's just a huge giveaway, a huge fire sale for these fucking vampires. I wrote, I read that as if I wrote, like, I'm reading something important. I was just getting ready to write like 50 tweets, and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to talk. I just got to talk. Next tweet. This is why they lean so heavily into culture war fights, culture wars in quotes. It gets clicks, headlines, distracts, and exhausts. It's very effective. It's the RWs, right wings, only move because their economics is brutal exploitation. But most of all, it's about preventing solidarity. So, understandably, this isn't to dismiss the pain and some of the scary stuff and the very direct antagonism towards marginalized groups, particularly our trans friends. The culture war has always been about limiting the scope of agency. So, but it's I mean, they're arguing about Mr. Potato Head, these fucking losers, grievance, whiny little bitches on the right that see everything as an example, like especially the ones that police film and movies and video games and shit and shows and what representation they see and bullying people, all that kind of crap. It's just so fucking annoying because it creates this hobby industry almost for losers to do. It's very sad. These little minions, little locust swarms of dumbasses. But this country neglects to develop people's cognition, and it neglects to develop people's empathy, and it makes it so difficult to experience predictable community to the degree that you become something you feel like you deserve. They made community a luxury good. They made community something they commodified into buying cleaning ladies, buying cooking, buying people's service, buying people's labor, buying people's help, buying people's medical help, like the stuff that we should just be. I don't mean cleaning ladies precisely. I'm just saying that when humans live together, people look out for each other. You get the benefit of the collective, and that includes someone doing some cleaning that you might not do. That's all I'm saying. I would love to be. I joke around on my podcast how much I'd love to be a house husband. specifically for 7 pizza oven wives. I'd like to think one for each day of the week. Sorry, I'm not going to go down that one. I wouldn't be so good at doing that because I'm good at fixing stuff. I'm also unemployable. So, but that you can experience community if you have enough money. Someone else will come over and raise your kid. The conversation about childcare and the expenses that go into just paying for it in this country is just absolutely mind-boggling how expensive it is. And the people who are working in those facilities don't get paid anything. It's a horrible job in terms of its pay. To care for children, I mean, the way this country looks at its children is one of the most savage, I think, things that we don't even realize. We don't stop those school shootings. We dose all the other kids with simulated shootings. There's an evil there. And I believe, and I'm saying this as a person who will never reproduce, hopefully, my God, please don't. I don't want kids. I know I wouldn't be able to handle it. I had a nice cat in my room for 2 years. And I could barely fit it. I was having regular anxiety meltdowns. It was horrible. Plus, I didn't have the money. It was a big, but she was starving. And I had to take her. I had to help. I had to do something. But it was horrible. I hated it. I would be a great guy who's in a community who's like, I could teach the kids woodworking. I could teach the kids something about fucking video editing. I don't want to be like, I'm not a big, I've always treated children like people, and the kids usually like me because I'm kind of a kid in a sense. I feel like I don't really feel like I have an age, even though my body is aging, and it's kind of gross and horrible to be in your mid 40s, especially when you're not doing the fountain of youth stuff, which is like good food and exercise. You can be a pretty healthy 50-something-year-old, but I'm like the guy who's a reminder of everybody else my age that they're going to die, as it was when I turned bald at 19 into my early, I didn't wake up bald one day, but I would love to exist within a world where children are looked after. I think the purpose of society should be to make parenting as easy as possible. I really think that's the way we should function as a community, as a society. The purpose should be nobody has a difficult time raising their kid. Some children are probably easier to care for than others. Some kids, blah, blah, blah. But the whole 2-parent, if you're lucky, the single parent thing that we have, and then kids just get abandoned, is inhuman. It's anti-human. Not a single human being has DNA in them that comes from only being ever raised by 2 people. It was always raised in groups. Lots of adults, lots of older children, lots of kids your age. If you were in the distant past, I mean like back before civilization, and you were a kid, maybe you had some siblings, but and there were just 2 adults looking after you, some shit went seriously wrong to be in that situation. And that's the fucking foundation of our bullshit ass family. I hate when lefties call it abolish the family. I feel like that is among the worst messaging you could come up with, even though I completely agree with the concepts. But the phrasing is just awful. It should be strengthen the family. Maybe widen the family. I know Cuba did some sort of redefinition of what they consider family, which I think is really cool. There's legal nuances in this world that we're in. We'd have to reckon with for sure. But I want a world where I can look at a person, and no matter what I know about them, and knowing nothing whatsoever about them, I want to have my own selfish security to see that person and say they had a safe childhood. That person was granted safety, food, nutrition, room to grow, room to experiment, room to fail, adapt. I think education should be adaptable to different learning styles, and there's countries that do it a lot better than we do here. But wouldn't you want to live in a world where every single person you see, you can, with high confidence, say their school was fucking awesome. Their parents weren't stressed out by their jobs. Their parents had a lot of time off to be with them. They got to live and go through the difficulties of childhood and do it in a safe way They never fell too hard. They never fell too far. And some kids go through harder stuff. Sometimes someone gets hurt, gets sick, accidents, something here and there, goes through a death. Maybe they're built in a way too. I'm saying this as an autistic guy. Didn't know I was autistic till 3 years ago. So I was a very sensitive little kid. Not that that's the only way autistic people present. Not saying that. I want a world where that's always true. I think one of the things that we should do as a society when we finally snap out of this craziness, which is going to happen after my lifetime, it won't be anytime soon, is universal rights for children, the right to safety. That should be the core of the entire planet's collective operation. And honestly, what it all comes down to, not all, doesn't boil simply down to this, but one of the main reasons, one of the primary things here is stressed out childhoods is how you produce stressed out adults. Stressed out adults is the source of assholes. I want to shut down the asshole factory. That's all I really care about. I mean, again, oversimplifying with all, but that would alleviate us from so many of the issues. But even the issues that we deal on a societal way and on a macro scale, on our own personal scales, on a micro scale. But even that is useful because stressed out children go through, if you're lucky, like myself, I'm still trying to find my footing in this world. Money situation is very bad, but stressed out kids have to go through, if you're lucky, got to get the thought back. They are able to get some help, maybe cope in ways. I had a drinking issue for a few years. I haven't had alcohol in 10 years. Had weed since then. But I feel the impulses even then with that too, for sure. So I'm careful. But as an example, I say that of coping, of going through unhealthy coping behaviors, in addition to how it can help or how it can influence the type of person you become, the sense of self that you develop, those other sort of constitutional traits that emerge that are supposed to grow from some very good, nutrient, healthy soil, instead that grows from all this toxic kind of poison soil that a lot of kids grow up with. And then we're putting phones in front of these poor babies at the very young ages, tablets and phones, and letting the internet influence their brains now. I think that's one of the main things, not just Jesus Christ, specifically that, but there's no way that this is healthy for humans. There's no way that this is going to help the situation. Part of that comes from because parents are busy, right? It's just easier sometimes because they lack the community. Maybe you're lucky that you have a bunch of friends. Maybe you're lucky that you have older relatives, grandma, grandpas, whatever, around helping out. But man, it is fucking hard mode out there. But let me try to get back to this kind of core stuff, is that of this topic, that feeds itself into the stress leverage matrix that I'm developing, this whole thing about solidarity. The more stressed out you are, the more you'll give up, the more tired you'll be, the more time you'll waste just dealing with other bullshit. So the culture war is about distraction, as well as imposing, it's genuinely, I think, worth fighting in a sense. Not that I want to accept the framing, but people need to be defended. And all these technologies of division, I think I came up, I don't know, whatever, who cares? But that's one of my things of all the isms, the sexism, and stuff I've been kind of grasping lately and learning of, just the lack of for women in this country, the agency that was allowed them has only been where it is since the 70s or 80s. And that's what in terms of you needed your husband's approval to get a bank account and credit card and these other sorts of things, mortgages and all this other stuff. We're still in primitive times, and it doesn't mean it's perfect now in any stretch. But that's all sources back to control, to limiting who has agency. And it's much more insidious when it's they're trying to give you the illusion of agency. Consumer choice is your only freedom. that shithead Donald Trump said, well, your kids might not have $30. Now they'll have two and they'll be more expensive. That's just kind of a similar point, a related point, but I could do a video about that maybe. Every ism that you can imagine is functionally at its core a technology that the capitalists use to destroy solidarity, to keep you mad, to keep you suspicious, to keep you busy, to keep you confused. They love people who give up. They love people who pull back. That's very healthy. And I'm not blaming anybody who does. I don't think that that's the right way to approach it. And so what Cenk Uygur did with the Young Turks, with the union busting, is solidarity was rearing its head. Something stronger than him suddenly appeared. And it enraged him. He couldn't deal with it. It broke his model of domination and subjugation. And it also, because of this sort of strange nature of TYT being this public entity, this political organization that is actually a for-profit media company, but it centers itself in a conversation about improving society, the home of progressives. Cenk makes such a big show about how much he cares and how great of a boss he is and how much he cares about paid family leave. I have a video on YouTube right now showing how I didn't have paid family leave. Not that I needed it. I wasn't becoming a father, but all leaves of absence were denied to me for 12 months out of 14 months working there. And during those 12 months is when we started unionizing. He doesn't mean what he says. So the union came up. Solidarity was stronger than Cenk was. We needed to change things. We needed to gain forced respect because it wasn't going to be natural. And that's the thing about it, is like it doesn't matter if they believe it or not. It just means that you have now altered the social physics of the group, has more power than the individual. Because I was an individual when I was an independent contractor. I was told no negotiating by the guy who hired me, and I didn't mind necessarily that. I was just grateful to get a fucking job that wasn't doing deliveries. I was desperate, and I was really in a dark, bad place mentally too back then. Still not doing good in that regard. But I kept asking, I'd bring it up with my manager occasionally. I'd mention it a lot. I think I should get benefits. Like, why don't I not have, I'm doing the same work as people. It's just, that's that whole thing. And instead, when I finally had a formal meeting, they changed my classification to part-time, temporary. And my hours were 40 hours. And that meant they get to keep more of my money. Money I was earning was not being given to me. And that was wrong. And dignity. And I got to wrap up here. I said I can't go. But this is one of the ideas I want to talk about a lot, or that I've been thinking about for quite a lot. And I'm probably going to somehow maybe figure this out in the film. This is stuff that I probably won't record until the editing is mostly done, like this sort of conclusion stuff. Because it's got to be presented in a way that my main hope is that people feel this in their own way, in their own world. I want people to feel cathartic about it too. But like dignity, what is dignity? So I'm calling the film, or describing it. Oh, sorry, too much coffee. The log line I've settled onto to succinctly summarize the film, even though it probably could be a little bit more precise, is it's a feature-length documentary about the battle for workplace dignity at the home of progressives. What is workplace dignity? What is dignity? We all kind of get the idea. I know there's definitions out there and stuff too, but my notion of it is that your pain becomes your community's emergency. The sense that your existence is worthy of someone else's alarm. Dignity. You didn't have to submit or sacrifice something close to you. Like you were able to hold your head up. You didn't have to sacrifice pride, healthy pride. Pride is one of those concepts, I think, that isn't necessarily always terrible, but it does get us into a lot of messy waters too. Pride is a goofy one because it connects to ego, which can be really problematic, obviously. Your pain matters. And when you say me and my friends, me and my coworkers, we're going to unionize, it's because we are in pain and we acknowledge each other's pain. We witness, and we are not okay with this continuing anymore. We are no longer consenting to this level of indignity. And I was working at TUIT. Again, if you're familiar, you know their shit. I'm sorry for all the repetition. But you're working for someone who tells a camera that people die when they don't have health insurance. And you got a piece of paper in your desk that says you don't get health insurance. That is colossally fucking fucked up. That is mind warping. You're working for someone who is explicitly public about how risky and dangerous it is and how the world should stop this barbaric practice. And you got paper in your desk that is the imposition of that barbaric practice. And you tried to do something about it because I didn't have dignity. It didn't matter to Cenk if I died or not. My pain, and when I asked for help, this is a critical moment too, because, to show an abundance of patience and good faith, they could have made it okay. I wanted to bury these skeletons. I didn't want this to be a fucking thing. This thing's been horrible for me, for my health, for my life, this whole project. I wanted these skeletons to not have to come out. I was forced. It's fucking life or death kind of shit. They could have said, shit, we didn't mean to let this go on so long, we'll fix it. Instead, the opposite happened. They twisted the disrespect even more. And I don't think they necessarily did that on purpose, but I don't think that they understood at all, because of the lack of regard for my humanity, that you call someone part-time after the 7 months of no benefits, you're just going to continue the scam, but you're going to use paperwork trickery. So there's profound disrespect, because I think obviously a very high tier component of dignity is respect. So it's an immense sort of thing. And that's when the union organizing took on like a kind of, I don't know if urgency is the right word, maybe intensity. That's when we sort of went from, because it all kind of happened right around the same time, end of May, June, early June is sort of when we were like, that's when I started having the conversations. This is some bullshit. And also, you're working at a place that attracts movement leftists, that attracts people who are going to be in favor of unionizing, who are going to be interested in the mission that the company ostensibly was supposed to be promoting, even though we all understand now it was all just marketing. And this is also why Cenk can so easily, I'm trying to wrap up these thoughts here, look at Charlie Kirk, Dr. Phil, Elon Musk, and he's positioning himself in order to pretend that he was right all along. I mean, that's just part of like the sort of narcissistic spell casting. You just insist. The straw manning is absolutely unbelievable. It's almost, it should be studied, the way he straw mans other people's cases and arguments. It's really something else, something to behold. But he, because of having graduated from the same business school as Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and going to Columbia Law School, Columbia is now, helping impose its fascism onto workers, onto the students, in cooperation with the Genocide Project. And this is all why Cenk has this ability to see them as partners, as potential partners, because there's a degree of, we should try to persuade people who are on the other side. We should pull them somewhat. We should look for common ground. I don't necessarily fault that. There's not that's sort of the reality plank that is among his. I'm just picturing like a video game where you're not sure if which board you're stepping on is real or not. Somehow, I don't know. But you can have a beer with these guys. That's why he's okay with Brianna Wu doing IDF propaganda, celebrating the imprisonment of Mahmoud Khalil, supporting it on Twitter, in the same tweet in which he's attacking Zohran Mamdani, a socialist running for mayor in New York, who has a real shot at it because he's really talented. He's really, he's got the optics and the charismatic stuff. It's one thing to be a socialist writer, but politicians have to have that sort of je ne sais quoi, I guess. It's a public position. It's amazing. And he can have Ben Glebe on to scream and yell at against. He's against Ben Glebe, but it also is more just him able to put a background up of contrasting his privilege, his principles against something that we all agree is terrible, at least from the left, at least from those of us that are against this genocide, that think it's absolutely abhorrent. So Ben Glebe's presence, Brianna Wu's presence, I've never seen Cenk publicly, do anything. She doesn't really go on air at TYT. But is in charge of Rebellion PAC, although she did say she's pulling back, just to be clear. But I don't know. You're leading a rebellion. Meanwhile, you're a union buster who uses anti-worker law firms and has people who do IDF propaganda on your shows. Really? So those people serve, at least Ben Glebe, let's say, to give Cenk the contrast to say, I'm a principled person. I look good when I argue. I'm fighting. I'm against this power. And also at the same time, he can insist that he's showing other sides of the thing. Editorial decision. A lot of people find it reprehensible. But someone like Francesca Fiorentini, whose precision and whose intelligence and her burrowing right past it, he had to come up with some bullshit excuses in order to let her go. In order to her presence was threatening because it threatened to expose the character that he's trying to hide, that he knows will be bad for him. Exactly the same reason why he won't tell the truth about the union. So the common cause with fascists is because it's in service of the same root code, which is domination and subjugation. And the powerful hate having the falseness of their power challenged and undermined and removed. And the best we're ever going to hope for is a tense negotiation between these two classes, between the working and the bossing. I don't like that bosses get to say they go to work. I don't like that. They go to boss. Boss should be a verb. I go to obey. They go to boss. Work. The order givers and the order takers. And the best we got is tension. Is saying your interests are in maximizing profit, maintaining control, and if you only understand achieving either of those, or both, achieving both of those, I guess, through domination, subjugation, then you're always going to sustain some animosity, or at least even in the better circumstances, nobody's showing up to defend Cenk. Do you see a parade of people from the past turning up? All the different contributors over the years, all the different people who worked at TYT. You're not seeing anybody show up to defend the guy in his current right-wing pivot. And I'm not sure if I'm going to necessarily get into this in the movie. There's a slight angle I have in my brain about maybe broaching this topic, kind of through like a messianic imagery. But if Cenk had actually understood solidarity, or had the maturity to learn about it and grow into it, and certainly treat people at his company and operate. And the number 2 guy at TYT is a health insurance executive. So you can get a sense for the ethical register that we're talking about with these people. The guy's LinkedIn is in the film. I've posted it too. 12 years as a health insurance executive before he joined TYT, like 10 years ago. But if they could actually function with solidarity, with trust, with insisting on dignity, and even in the best circumstances, we're always compromising somewhat on our dignity, I think. I think that's going to be always somewhat true. But we humans are really willing to put up with some bullshit in this society. And on top of that, they're going as hard as they can now, which is why these fucking Nazis are pulling over buses and trying to find the union leaders. But Cenk could have been a global union leader. He's positioned via his sort of Americanism as well as his foreignism, because he's a, you know what I mean, saying like on a global sense, you don't just need a white guy, you need like a guy like him, like Russell Brand, the comedian. He's Canadian, but I'm honestly not sure. I don't want to just guess, but I've heard him talk about it. He's like, yeah, I'm like brown, but I'm brown in a way that so many different people in different countries relate to, but I'm Canadian. Like I've heard Russell Brand say that. Did I say Russell Peters? Check that. Russell Peters, the comedian from Canada. He's really super successful. I'm not sure if his star is as bright as it was years ago, but for a while he was by far one of the biggest comedians, or like top one or two comedians in the planet, because his international touring was amazing. Sorry, Russell Brand, not Russell Brand. And Cenk could have developed into a union leader, and that would have meant his company would have functioned better too, not just because of the union leadership or something like that, but I'm saying like the work he would have received from his people, the talent that has gone through the Young Turks door and then out the door again eventually for the last time. I've seen a lot of it. I've seen much more than anybody listening to this has, except maybe other TYT people. And it was mostly just do your job, keep your head down, try your best, work hard, put in some extra miles. You know, I'm not trying to speak for everybody's experience, but it's a waste. It's a waste of an opportunity. And TYT would be so much better off financially. Cenk would have so much more profile on a personal scale, like on his fame, ego, power trip. And he could be leading. Instead, he's hiding from a documentary. He's hiding from people asking him questions about this. He lied to the Generational Change podcast. He lied to that caller in October. And I'm sure it's going to come up again. There's no way that this thing, even though I've struggled and I'm having a difficult time getting the attention I want, in other words, the velocity of the interest, I'll get little spikes here and there, but it's not yet reached that mass that it really needs to get to a point. But he's going to get asked about it. It's going to have to explain it someday. Someone who's seen all the evidence, read the articles, doesn't just have to believe my story, even though I'm an original source. And he's going to be asked, and he's going to squirm. He's going to keep lying, because that's control. He's already too deep in that, I think. All right, so okay, I'm just going to start rambling there. But the whole solidarity and leverage, and I guess another thought is just like the reason the billionaires need all that money, the reason it seems so weird that they just need it's because it prevents you from having it. It's your stress is their power. Your stress is their worth. Your stress is their money. If you have it, it stops being stress to you. And that increases the chance that someone will unionize, that someone will stand up, that someone will just stay at the job. Doesn't have to even be unions just disrupting this stuff, but just the fact that you might not need this fucking job because your wife can get her health care without having this shitty job. So they're addicted to your stress. The competitive psycho brain of these monsters at the top, these 0.0001% egomaniac fucking billionaires competing, they're just addicted to who can gather the most stress from you and your family and your society and your community. That's all it is. And so what's happening with the Trump administration right now, the culmination, let's hope it's the culmination. My God, if the culmination is still 10 years away, it's going to get even worse. But like this American core colonial brain, fortress brained insanity that we're seeing is an old playbook, but it's a very Americanized version of it. Trump just posted a fucking picture of him as the Pope on the White House. Like, so what they're doing is they're grabbing at your stress. They're grabbing even more leverage by imposing fear for this white supremacist hellhole, this fucking apartheid ethno-state craziness of which the Israel assault on Gaza is all about, and their, you know, near annexation of the West Bank completely. These are legacies of colonialism, legacies of all that violence, and the emptiness of whiteness. That's not a topic I should probably start talking about right now. I'm trying to wrap this up, but all right, that's it, I guess. Thank you for listening to this. I'm just going to post it, I think, and maybe I'll call it a podcast. I'm recording it on Substack, and let's see what else. Just consider supporting the film. Honestly, man, I really had like a little revelation the other day. I owe my roommate over 30 grand. I'm trying to raise 50,000. Obviously, I hope the fundraiser gets big and gets bigger than that, but that's enough to buy me the stress relief I need to do a good job in the film. Like, I need like 6 months of Tony Starking this thing in a cave. I'm really good at that. That's where my neurodivergence really shines. When my day goes from 12-hour to 12-hour to 12-hour, but like I'm a hyper obsessive maniac, and right these days I'm flailing all over the internet, not even doing a good job at that, trying to get people interested, wasting time, getting distracted, ADHD, unmedicated for sure, but also like the thing I still like, I'm a race car that is really something to behold in the right circumstances. So the money is about empowering that. And then I can tell the story with the respect it deserves, with the respect my friends deserve, and move on from it too. Because I hope to recover. I think being able to talk about it publicly with people. I'm going to be on the Punch Up Pod soon, next week, middle or first week of May, if you're May 7th, since you're probably hearing this in the future. But I really hope to have like nice, long, deep conversations with people about all the different topics here, as well as their own stories about their own jobs and their own work and stuff like that, because that's going to be how I heal from this fucking thing. Because Cenk is a very dark personality, very dark pathologies going on there, and I inhabit that. And I don't feel well. I feel the toxins in my body. So so I need, that's the solidarity I'm asking for now, is the money, of course, because God damn it, I have to embarrass myself with this shit, but I need, there's no avoiding that. But truly, I look forward to the conversations I hope to be able to have with people and maybe form some connections too, because it's been really fucking lonely. And all right, now I'm talking myself into crying. So all right, I guess that's all. Look out for yourself and look out for each other.